in balance. We are in our series of the great religions of the world, and we do have the Swami Yogeshwarananda with us today, who has a foundation in Hinduism but also has studied all of the great religions of the world, and I've asked him to share with you Nirvana. So come join us, Living in Balance on Shakti Hill. Every year or two, we are treated with a visit from the Swami Yogeshwarananda. He does come to our area by way of, this time, Switzerland and then California, and so we are very honored to have him with us. Welcome, Swami.
Oh, thank you very much.
I have asked if you would share today on the subject of Nirvana, and you said, well, with your background in having studied both Buddhism and the Hinduism, which approach would I like? And I said, tell us both how they are alike and how they are different, and what is Nirvana?
Well, Nirvana means a state of enlightenment. You get to your own blessed state of existence in which you experience a state of wonderful beingness, which is so distinct and cut away from our normal human empirical existence in the world. That's a state wherein you experience total bliss, wherein you get to know everything, you're all-knowing, and you are absolute in your existence. When I use the word absolute, it means that you are self-complete in every sense of the term.
Swami, are we all striving toward Nirvana? Are some people aware that they are? Is that a goal of the human condition?
Yes, that is the final goal and the final state. The only difference is most of us are going through it unconsciously, while a few who have understood the significance of human existence tend to proceed towards it more consciously and want to accelerate their movement towards it.
Well, in talking with someone about the basics of Hinduism, they were explaining that some people are bad and act badly. Some people are good and their behavior is good. And then there is the devoted. Now, is it if you were to look at people like that, is it the devoted that are aware that they are on this journey toward enlightenment?
Not necessarily. Of course, you get a wide spectrum in the human character. But the ones who are proceeding towards Nirvana are the ones who are more truth conscious, or who are devoted with all their heart and being in trying to experience the state of Nirvana, or the enlightened state. You may call it the godly state of beingness.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we have talked about Nirvana before, some people have explained there are no real lows, there are no real highs, it is a middle road. Now, where is the definition of that being at that middle road? You make it sound absolutely blissful.
Yes, in fact, the way towards it is the middle path. Lord Buddha very beautifully termed it as the middle path. And that is the psychological middle path, not the physical middle path, but the psychological state wherein you maintain your balance. So you're leading a very balanced and serene way of living, which will eventually lead you to Nirvana.
So our show could be, instead of living in balance, we could just be Nirvana.
Yes, that is right.
Okay, so that's like the ultimate goal of the living in balance would be defined or explained as Nirvana.
Yes, in fact, it is very intriguing to know that that is one of the definitions given in the Bhagavad Gita too, the middle path, wherein it mentions samatvam yoga uchyate. That means the state of mental equipoise, or the state of mental balance with which one is living one's life, is the way or the road to Nirvana.
Okay. Do we sometimes drift in and out of it? Are we sometimes experiencing it and then we go back to the mundane, or we are still learning our lessons? What is that? Is it a place that you are always, or do you drift back and forth?
Well, at the moment we are not drifting into it, but what we are doing is that basically we are, from a human perspective or human level of living, at times we are balanced. The human race is balanced. Individuals are balanced. And very often they are imbalanced too. But the whole key or the whole idea is that one should keep on living our life in a very balanced, serene, calm manner, so that eventually and finally we would get into that ultimate state of balance and peace.
Would we stay here in this plane, in this planet, in this life, if we reach nirvana?
When you reach nirvana, what happens is that the whole universe collapses and disappears. And an intriguing question arises. If the whole universe disappears, then where are we? But the remarkable thing is the whole universe is or exists in space and time, where there is movement and change. While the state of nirvana is that which is beyond space, wherein there is no time and wherein there is no movement, because it is full, it is total, it is absolute beingness.
Okay. Now, are you then, because you have devoted yourself, and let's tell, some people have not met you before, so we have to know your story. I refer to you as the Swami from Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Yes, which used to be Ceylon.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so Sri Lanka. And from there, that's where you were born, but you really did your spiritual work in the Himalayas. Tell us a little bit about your journey that brought you to this understanding of nirvana.
Well, when I was young, I was a seeker after truth, what the truth of life is all about. And then by God's grace, I got into the spiritual life and went over to the Himalayas to live the life of a hermit monk. And during the course of my life there, I began to appreciate and understand the purpose of life and what the state of nirvana is all about and how to proceed towards that. And that has been my life.
Well, according to your resume, it was 25 years that you spent.
It's about 35 now.
35 now. And you actually did then, as an ascetic, you spent time in the cave, you actually spent time in not poverty, but without support except from the generosity of the people. Is that how the ascetic lives?
That's right. In fact, the support structure of the Indian society is very congenial and conducive to lead the life of a hermit or of an ascetic. The society is very supportive and recognizes people who so tend to lead a spiritual life. So as a result of it, what happens is that who knows, out of 1,000 hermits, one could flower out into a beautiful holy being who has attained nirvana.
And so just in case, the people then are willing to support the lifestyle of the monks.
That's right.
Okay. But what you've said is that Hinduism is the basis for your philosophy, but why did you go beyond that? What was it about you as a seeker of the truth that you wanted to know the other great religions?
Well, we don't confine ourselves to any particular tradition. We make access to the available knowledge found in the world. So therefore, it is only right and proper that we go into all traditions from which one could derive the maximum input and knowledge and understanding. And the remarkable thing is that what has been briefly mentioned in one tradition, certain aspects get better explained in another tradition. And what has been mentioned in a third tradition, just only merely being just given a simple passing reference, gets well expounded in another tradition. So it is therefore very good to go into all traditions so that one could become the richer for it.
Yes. And so
we
that was your approach.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, I had no bias or particular inclination towards any particular religion. I was not concerned with religion, not in the least. All that I was concerned was to know what the truth of life is all about. So I broke the religious barrier when I was young itself, as I had no interest in religion, but only in God and the truth of life.
Oh, I see. Okay, so with a religion meaning a structured place, or with a religion with certain dogma and certain rules, you were only looking for what you considered to be what was the truth.
What was the truth?
The wisdom.
That's right.
Okay.
Because a religious structure encompasses many facts, many features. Its theological doctrines, its ritualistic approach, its belief system, which may be relevant or non-relevant, and its varied practices, which equally also may be relevant, may not be, its conventions and practices. But what I was concerned of was the truth it was bringing out, the final truth of life.
Now, the one book that we'll mention first is a book that then was an outgrowth of this wisdom that you had gained, and it is called The Yoga for Understanding.
Yes, The Yoga of Understanding is a book, is an explanatory commentary on a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein wisdom knowledge is brought out. Because the first thing that a spiritual seeker or a truth seeker should seek for is wisdom and knowledge.
I was going to ask you, I know that you've spent all those years in the cave and so forth, but might it be possible for us to take a few shortcuts to enlightenment, some techniques that might help? So if you will stay tuned, we will be back with Swami and some steps toward enlightenment. If you are just joining us, we are talking with the Swami Yogeshwarananda. He is philosopher and he is author. 3 of his books that we have we're going to be talking about in addition to our techniques toward enlightenment. And of those 3 books that we have mentioned that he is the author of, he has shared his wisdom and his light as he has traveled the world. And that is what he determined was his role when he left the Himalayas. And how did you know you were to write? Was it just time? Was that as the author?
Yes, in fact, each one expresses his own nature. So when the time has come, you give expression to what you understand and what you know.
Yes. And I had mentioned the first book, and that was what I mentioned, the title, The Yoga for Understanding, and you said, no, it is The Yoga of Understanding. And you might even have changed the title. Tell us about that.
Yes, in fact, understanding is, it's the yoga of understanding. One has to understand, and in order for the understanding to transpire, one requires wisdom knowledge.
Yes.
So we could even say it's a yoga of wisdom knowledge.
Yes, okay. And that's what you said we must acquire first.
First.
Okay, so that is our homework then.
That's right. In fact, once you have the wisdom knowledge, you would know where to proceed and how to proceed and where you are and what you are right now.
Okay. So after wisdom and knowledge, then we move to the action.
That's right.
Okay. And one of the words for action, is it karma?
Yes.
Okay. And people have a misunderstanding, too, of karma. If you were to define that again for us, and I've asked you this before, karma is?
Karma is a very wide word, which we could say that it's a series of life experiences and life actions that we go through in life could be said to be karma.
Okay. And when we use it in the Western sense, we'll say, well, that's your karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. So it's a result of the action that you take is what happens after.
Yes, it does. But it's the laws which govern the karmic effects on people is far more complex than that.
Yes.
It's not merely a law. It's not merely a action and reaction as it is popularly said.
Yes, the cause and effect. So that's how it's used in the Western, but it's really much wider than that.
It's much more wider than that. It's not only used in the Western tradition, but in the Asian tradition too. But I believe it's far more complex than that, wherein the entire human character is brought out to be unfolded in the scheme of living life.
Yes.
And that which governs and regulates them is, one of the factors is, of course, the cause and effect. But there's another factor which is even more strong, and that is each person's psychological makeup, which is also a very great contributive factor towards the unfoldment of karmas in one's life.
Yes. I remember I asked you, and I was so pleased with your explanation of Dharma, and I understood it then to mean that our Dharma was our purpose, was our gift, was our natural talent, and what we were supposed to express here in this lifetime.
That's right. It's a law of being for each individual as per his nature.
Okay, so it's the individual's law of being.
Law of being, which is unique to each person, as each person is so uniquely structured in character differently.
So as they're trying to find their purpose in life, if they know what their law of being is, then personally, then they can fulfill that purpose.
Yes, in order to know what their law of being is, first of all, they must understand themselves. So they have to psychoanalyze and understand themselves.
Yes.
So the process of psychoanalyzing and understanding oneself is wherein you become your own guru. And thereafter you could guide yourself. Because who is the person who knows yourself best? It's yourself.
Yes.
So who could guide yourself the best? It is you.
Tell me of the message that in one of your other books, Mind in the State of No Mind, the journey into the self. Is that part of our purpose being here? Must we always learn to know ourselves again?
That's right. In fact, from the mind, we get to the state of no mind. And the state of no mind is the state of nirvana, wherein you transcend the mind, transcend existing in a body, and you go beyond the mind.
Yes. But we must start
So through
first.
through the mind, you proceed beyond the mind. And when you get to the no mind state, you lose your mind.
And that's good.
That's very good.
Okay. And then we reach the holistic view of life. We look at life differently, and that's another one of your books, The Holistic View of Life.
Yes, in fact, the holistic view means that in order to have a perspective and a vision of the whole, which is the one truth. So once you have a vision of that one truth, thereafter you could meditate on it, on the final truth, and experience it, realize it within yourself.
Okay.
So for that, the vision of the whole, the vision of the one truth has to be discerned as to what it is.
Okay. Now let us go back just a moment to the nirvana, because how would you express from your studies of the great world religions the difference between the Hindu and Buddhist perspective of nirvana?
Yes, in fact, a very slight emphasis is given, though it's one and the same. The Buddhist word is nibbana, the Hindu word is nirvana. While the Buddhists tend to give it a negative connotation, the Hindus are a little more positively affirmative on it.
Oh.
So as the Hindus state it more on a positive basis as absolute bliss, while the emphasis in the Buddhistic tradition is that it is the emptying of the universe. The universe is not there, nor is the individuality of the person. So neither the individual, the so-called individual soul, is not there. The person who aspires for nirvana, when he attains nirvana, is not there. Then at the same time, along with the person, the individual, the universe is a counterpart of his, it's a counter-opposite of his. So the universe too, it fizzles and disappears at the time of nirvana. So in nirvana, neither the universe nor the individual is there, but a state of beingness which is beyond these two is there. And that's all that is mentioned or indicated in the Buddhistic tradition. While in the Hindu tradition, it's a little more positively affirmed and stated that nirvana is the state of absolute existence, absolute knowledge consciousness, and absolute bliss.
So something one would want to attain.
Certainly.
And I ask you if there are any shortcuts to enlightenment and nirvana and bliss, or techniques. I was being a little silly.
Well, there are shortcuts and there are no shortcuts.
Okay.
In fact, a shortcut is, the shortest cut is to keep quiet. Be still and know thyself. So if you can be mentally silent, mentally quiet, that state of quietness will lead you to nirvana. That is to say, when all the agitations of the mind and the agitations of the heart subside, then one enters nirvana. So that is a short way, to keep quiet.
So one must then find that quiet place.
Yes, quietness within oneself.
Okay. And if we hear that chatter, is it just a matter of practicing? Can you get better at it? Do you need to just have intention and put your energy to that?
That's right. We must consciously make an effort to put a stop to our mental chatter and to get into a meditative state. In a meditative state, you become acutely or consciously aware of the truth of life, which is there within you.
Okay. Now, just very briefly, we have a few minutes left. As a Swami, you are a vegetarian?
Yes.
Okay. You said you don't need to do all the hatha yoga. That is
Not at
necessary.
all, not at all, because spiritual life is primarily a mind science, and it deals with the mind, to go beyond the mind.
But your exercise, you love to walk, just because you love to walk?
Yes, and it's good for the body and the mind too.
Now, as far as the robe, everything you have on is in the shades of the orange. Tell me about that.
Yes, the orange is the color of fire, and fire purifies, so it's symbolic.
Okay, so the symbolism then, and so everything then in the orange gives you that reminder to yourself.
That's right.
Okay. And as you travel now, you will leave us and you will go home to Sri Lanka on your way home to India.
Yes, in fact, I'll be passing through Colombo on my way to India, to the Himalayan mountains, where I live.
Okay. And when you are there, then you'll be able to come back from society into your quiet place. Is it easier to be quiet in the Himalayas?
Yes, because it's easier to be quiet there because we have no activity. At least some of us don't have any activity.
Yes.
And therefore it's very conducive.
Yes.
Not to be involved with society, but to be by oneself is very desirable in the long run to get into nirvana.
Yes. But we are very pleased that you do leave India annually or every other year and come to share your wisdom and your light. Thank you.
Thank you.